Hello everyone, welcome to Azul Blue United by Autism. This is Olivia Espinosa and today we have a very special guest. She's part of my son's therapy team since 6 years ago. She's a BCBA from the Loba Center. Here is with us, Drew Abdel Al. Welcome and thank you for being here with us, Drew.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We have a lot to learn from you. First, how did you get started with children with autism using ABA?
So I got started about 12 years ago when I was doing my undergraduate degree at UNLV. At the time I was getting my degree in psychology and philosophy and knew I wanted to pursue a route in psychology. And I was also working in a psychology lab under one of my psychology professors. And so we were doing in-home cognitive behavioral therapy on children who were maltreated by their parents. And so that was kind of my first step into learning about behavioral therapy and actually being able to apply it. And I absolutely fell in love with working with the kids, working with the families, and being able to actually see progress. So that really told me that I wanted to work with kids and continue to pursue that. So a woman that I worked with at the lab, she actually worked for the Loba Center as well, doing one-on-one in-home behavioral therapy. And, we got to talking about what we wanted to do once we graduated. And I told her I really wanted to work with kids. So she told me, she was like, hey, you should come to a workshop and, just kind of see what it looks like. And so I did. And that was my first time meeting Eric Lovas. And I was starstruck and nervous because I learned a lot about his father in my classes. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I knew that was the path I wanted to take. Working with kids in the home, working with families, and being able to be there on a daily basis and actually see progress was something that was so amazing and humbling to me as well. So from there, I pursued that career. I took steps towards getting my license and just getting a lot of education, trying to learn as much as I could, trying to work with as many different kids and consultants as possible so I could be the best behavioral consultant that I could be.
Wow, that's great, Drew.
Yeah.
We need more people like you.
We're getting there.
Drew, what is ABA?
So ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. And a lot of people think that ABA is a therapy, and it actually isn't a therapy. It's a set of principles that are used in conjunction with a therapy. I like to think of it like medicine, right? Medicine really isn't a therapy. Rather, medicine is a set of principles that doctors and physicians use to treat patients. And then they use those principles in cardiology, neurology, and various other domains. So basically, ABA is a set of principles that say that we can change behavior by manipulating certain antecedents and certain consequences within the environment to make a person be able to behave in a way that would be helpful for them and be functional, while also teaching them new skills. So it's really a set of principles that are used with a therapy that's developed outside of it.
Estamos hablando de ABA para nuestra gente en español, que viene a ser análisis de comportamiento aplicado. Y bien, what motivated you to choose to continue to work with our children as BCBA, and what is the process to get it?
So what motivated me was seeing the progress, but then also seeing the lack of resources that were available to parents and children. So seeing what difference I could make in actually seeing these kids no longer bang their heads against a wall or kids being mainstreamed into general education. I knew that what I was doing was working, and that there's decades and decades of research that backed it up. So that was my motivation to continue. And so getting the BCBA, which is the Board Certified Behavior Analyst degree, was my next step. So in order to continue to practice with children with autism, I needed that credential. So I went back to school. I got my master's in special education. And I got my BCBA. When I first started 12 years ago, there was no such thing as the RBT. There was something called a CABI, which was just getting started. So I ended up getting my CABI licensure, which basically composed of me studying some of the behavioral principles that I needed to know and getting some supervision hours. And since then, it's evolved quite a bit.
Yeah.
So right now the RBT is your registered behavior technician, which is what is needed at the lower level to be an instructor. So that requires 40 hours of supervised therapy. So that supervision would come from a BCBA or BCABA, and then you have to sit for 2 tests. One is a competency assessment, which is done with your supervisor, and then there's actually like a sit-down proctored exam. So it's definitely something that is now becoming a standard policy for anyone wanting to work with kids with autism.
Wow. Now here in Nevada, we have many providers for ABA. What do the parents need to know when they are looking for a provider?
Sure. So it can definitely be a very daunting task for sure. It's very overwhelming. But what I feel like is important for parents to ask themselves is, where do they want to do therapy? Do they want to do therapy in the home, or do they want to do it in an office or in a clinic? My whole experience has always been in the home, from back from when I was at UNLV till now, and research shows that doing therapy in the home produces better outcomes than doing it in a clinic type of environment. So definitely want to see too what your schedule is like, right? For some people it is easier, right, to drive over to a clinic. For other people it's easier to have instructors come to their home. So definitely thinking about that. Thinking about the educational level of the consultants as well. So, you know, how long have they been practicing with their BCBA? How many BCBAs are on staff? I think that's really important as well, because I'm constantly learning from my colleagues as well. It's not just me working at the Lobos Center with my BCBA, it's all of us working together for one kid. So we always say that any child that we have, they don't just get me, they get everybody at the Lobos Center, because we come together, we talk about our clients, we brainstorm, we share data to try and make sure that this child that I'm working with is getting the best services possible. So I would definitely look at how many BCBAs are on staff, because the more you're working with like-minded people, the more you're going to be able to share ideas and share research. So I would look at that, and then I would also look at what type of programming do they do for children. So some agencies will be comprehensive. They'll teach everything from tying your shoes to paying attention to riding a bike to being able to learn how to write, whereas some other agencies will do specific skills. So maybe just some self-help skills, maybe some school-based skills. So really want to look at what is the breadth of programming that the agency does. And then do they do school observations? Do they do community-based?
That is so important, yes.
For sure, our kids spend a lot of time in school. They spend more time in school sometimes than they do at home. So it's important for us to see what are our kids doing in school, right? It's a good assessment to see, is the therapy that we're doing at home, is it working and generalizing? And same thing for going out in the community. Kids don't just spend their whole life in the house, right? They go to the grocery store, they go to parks, they go to church. So it's important that behaviorists go out and they see our kids in all of those environments as well. So I would definitely look at those components of a provider to see, you know, what exactly is it that I want for my child, and then making sure that an agency can provide all those things that I would want for my child.
That's good. And what would you like to tell to the parents that have a child with autism?
So that's a long one.
I know.
Patience is definitely the biggest thing. Being a parent in general requires patience. Being a parent of a child with autism requires so much patience and stamina. Sometimes you want to feel like you want to give up, but it always gets worse before it gets a little bit better with kids. So I would say just don't give up. You know, look at the resources out there, ask questions, go to FEET meetings. We have such a strong community here in Las Vegas that I don't feel like a lot of other places have. So use those resources, use that community. You know, you can definitely do a Google search, but it's different when you're sitting down with a group of people who are going through the same thing, and it's difficult sitting down and having that sense of community where you can ask questions and be able to voice your concerns and learn, like, oh, I didn't even know this therapy was out there, or talk to other parents, like, this parent is using this agency, this one is using this agency, and you can talk firsthand with parents. So just be persistent. Don't give up, and don't be afraid to
Mhm.
use your resources and to ask questions. It's how the community got to where it is today.
Exactly. Paciencia, mucha paciencia es lo que necesitamos. If someone is interested to have services or more information about trainings that you have, what is that phone number to contact you and the Lova Center?
Yeah, so the Lova Center, we can be reached at 702-877-2520. We also have a Facebook page, just the Lova Center for Behavioral Intervention, and then we also have a website as well, which is thelovacenter.org.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Ruth, for being here with us. And I hope you like this information. And don't forget to follow us on our Facebook page, YouTube, and azulblue.org. And also on our phone number, 702-955-4415. 702-955-4415. And remember that we are united by autism. See you next time.